So hi again, my name is Chris Richardson, Chief Program Officer at Downtown Streets Team. For those that are unaware, Downtown Streets Team, we operate a work experience program for unhoused individuals to beautify their community in exchange for services. Those services are designed to eliminate the barriers to homelessness. To condense that a little bit further, we're ending homelessness through the dignity of work. That's our motto, and really one of the focuses of today for me is anytime you are implementing something that's going to have an impact on other folks, to do so considering their dignity. But I want to thank everybody in the room for doing that today. It's pretty rare that we get asked ahead of an initiative like this, like how is this going to impact the folks that you're serving? How is this going to impact unhoused people? Usually it's an afterthought, and so I'm proud to share the room with you today. First and foremost, I know I only have 10 minutes, but I think this is about valuable use of our time. I want to break out amongst your tables. It seems like we're in little clusters here for about a minute or so, and I want you to ask and answer the question with a couple partners. What do you think is the worst part about being homeless? Go. One thing that we didn't hear, at least as a bigger group, not having a place to go to the bathroom. You'd be shocked at how much we take that for granted every single morning, every single night, beyond just getting in your bed and waking up in the morning and being able to go to the bathroom and take a shower. It's really horrific the way folks are treated when they try and do this, and sometimes in our business community, that type of thing. It's a real consideration. Having said that, in 2005, when Downtown Streets Team first got started, we did a survey, and one of the questions that we asked at the homeless population in Palo Alto was, what is the worst part about being homeless? There were a bunch of options. A lot of the things that we talked about today were listed. Multiple choice. What's the worst part? Overwhelmingly, folks clicked the other box and said some form of being looked down upon, feeling like I have no dignity, some form of feeling marginalized, and that really stuck with us from the very get-go. One of the absolute pleasures of the work that I get to do is that our folks are cleaning up on the street wearing bright yellow shirts. We don't have any teams here in San Mateo County. Hopefully that changes soon. We're in 12 communities in Northern California. But when you come to one of our communities and you see our team members, it's really great to see them walking down the street, so proud to be part of that solution. And people come up to our folks all the time and say, hey, thank you so much for what you're doing. They give our folks cash, which is great. And it's really enjoyable. So enough plugs for Downtown Streets Team. I will say that we worked in this encampment called The Jungle in San Jose. You may have read about it. It was called the biggest encampment in the country at one point. It is connected to a creek which goes into the bay and obviously the ocean. We would pull battery tires out of there, discarded recycling materials, really horrific stuff. People were bathing there and going to the bathroom there. I found out that human waste is more toxic than most toxic waste. With working in that encampment, about 400 to 500 folks at its max living along this creek. It was really horrific. My father, who was in Haiti after the earthquake with the Red Cross, and when I brought him down to the jungle to show him, he said, this looks worse than Haiti did right after the earthquake. I can't believe I'm in the United States of America and Google's right down the street and Adobe's right up the road, and it's just crazy to think about. We also work along the American Parkway up in Sacramento. If you've not been there recently, doesn't look great. You have a lot of folks that have nowhere else to go. Folks in this room, you all know that homelessness doesn't just impact the folks experiencing homelessness. It impacts all of us. It impacts local businesses, tourism, government. In 2015, we did a cost study, the first of its kind in Santa Clara County, and found out that the county alone was spending over $500 million a year on homeless men. That's not to house them. That's not to provide them with services. That's just in health and hospital costs, in criminal justice costs, and some other services that don't actually house people. So it really affects us all, and I'm glad I'm in this room again so that we can work on that. We had a plastic bag ban in San Jose around the same time, and the irony there is that we actually saw more debris end up in the encampments after the plastic bag ban. We think this is this great move forward, but for the homeless population, that's how they kept their things, without a way to keep and then discard their things. All of a sudden that debris was everywhere. And so we were left to clean that up as the Downtown Streets Team. That was pretty ironic. Another irony when thinking about this issue is those of us that have and theoretically can spend more money on more material things tend to produce less debris. For all the folks that we work with, every time they put on a pair of clothes, they're going to have to discard those clothes because they don't have a place to wash them. We've been talking about plastic forks. They don't have a place to clean metal forks, right? So everything is disposable in their lifestyle, and it's really impactful. When looking at how this may affect our folks potentially, I immediately think of how will our men and women afford these containers, right? That's certainly a consideration. There was talk of, if folks are on WIC or maybe CalFresh, if they could get a waiver and get one of these containers, and that's great. But I'm here to tell you that less than half of the folks that we deal with are on WIC or CalFresh, and those folks tend to be even more destitute, meaning they have a greater need, financial need. How do we deliver these containers to those folks? That's certainly a consideration. Another thing is, how will they clean? How will they be able to clean these containers? Miriam and I were talking earlier about some other things we've done where there's kind of an exchange. We've all heard of needle exchange programs. You could do kind of a dirty container for a clean container type of exchange. And that's great, and that seems to solve a lot of the issues surrounding this. But it's certainly expensive. You need to staff that. You could have service centers where folks could turn in a dirty container and get a clean container. One of the other considerations, most folks who don't work closely with the unhoused population to consider is faith communities oftentimes do what they call feedings, which I think is a terrible name, where they feed homeless populations in set spots, Tuesdays at noon type of thing. They always use throwaway containers, styrofoam containers, that type of thing, and you should see these places after they go. It's a nightmare. It's an environmental catastrophe on a small scale. Being that as it may, how do we work with the faith-based community so that they can get these containers too, that they can recycle these containers? Maybe there's a solution there as well that they can actually give out these containers. I'm running out of time. I don't have any of the answers for this, but I hope someone in here does. We'd certainly be willing to help out in any way that we can, and are so appreciative that our folks, the folks that are living on the streets, that will sleep on the streets tonight, are being considered as you move forward. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much to our panelists. I just wanted to ask Chris to stay here for one more second and address the question about the Berkeley ordinance tries to address the homelessness issue and tries to create an exemption so that they won't have to pay the charges, recognizing that they have no way to avoid the disposable. So what the Berkeley ordinance does is it provides that people who have EBT cards or are on the WIC program can be exempt, and that was the best we could do with the input that we got at the time, but maybe there's a better way to go about this. So I just wanted you to address that.
Yes. As I mentioned, not everybody's on WIC or CalFresh. One of the systems that is gaining steam in every continuum of care, which are the local bodies that really manage a lot of the federal funding, especially that go through homeless, they have these coordinated entry systems, often called HMIS or Homeless Management Information Systems. And in order to receive services now, amongst almost all the service providers, you actually need to get into this system. There's a lot of benefits. There's some drawbacks too, but I won't get on a soapbox here. One of the advantages is that we could actually provide maybe an ID card or something like that, or actually send folks to a place where they could actually exchange and prove that they're unhoused because they're in the system. It's a system where you actually self-declare that you're unhoused, so it's not foolproof. Folks can get around it, but it would be a way to get the containers to those folks.